Hello again, everyone, and welcome to The Story Behind the Story. This is the podcast that digs deep into the narratives and the history we think we know. Today, we're venturing into the heart of one of those stories as we discuss the Petersen House. My name is Brian Smith. I want to welcome you to the podcast today. You've likely heard about the Petersen House. That's the iconic home where President Abraham Lincoln died the morning after being shot in Ford's Theater. But what's the real story behind this landmark? What secrets does it hold, and what impact does it have that we will discuss today? We're going to be exploring the history of the Petersen House, its significance, and how it's woven into the history books. So join me today as I uncover the story behind the story of the Petersen House, Washington, D.C. The house where Abraham Lincoln died is located at 516 10th Street, Washington, D.C. It was the home and business of William and Anna Petersen. The Petersens were immigrants from Germany, and they actually constructed this handsome four-story dwelling around 1849. And by the time of the Lincoln assassination, the Petersens and their children lived in the basement of the house. The upper stories were operated as a boarding house. Now, this form of accommodation became very popular during the Civil War as the population of Washington actually tripled in just 4 years. There were likely at least a dozen people renting rooms in the Petersen House when Lincoln was assassinated. Now, on the night of April 14, 1865, one renter at the Petersen House was Henry Safford, a young War Department clerk from Massachusetts. Safford was preparing for bed when he heard a commotion in the street outside. He walked out the front steps of the house to investigate. He saw a large crowd. In the middle of it, he saw a group of soldiers struggling to carry the stricken figure of Abraham Lincoln. Henry Safford decided to act in that moment. He waved and called out, "Bring him in here." The soldiers took heed, and they carried the president into Petersen House. President Lincoln was taken to a small bedroom in the back of the first floor. The soldiers and doctors had to lay him diagonally across the bed there, as his 6'4" frame was just too tall for the bed. For the next 9 hours, the president clung to life, unconscious but still breathing. In the front parlor, Mary Lincoln grieved, surrounded by friends and family, including her eldest son, Robert. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, one of Lincoln's top cabinet members, arrived at the scene not long after the president was carried inside. Stanton set up a temporary office in the back parlor. There, Stanton interviewed witnesses from Ford's Theater and began the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth and his conspirators. He held meetings with fellow cabinet members, and they were planning the transition of power to Vice President Andrew Johnson. Family members, friends, generals, government officials, they all came to the house throughout the night to pay their respects and say their goodbyes. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, Abraham Lincoln died at the age of 56. The moment he died, a silence fell over the room. Stanton finally broke it, saying, "Now he belongs to the ages." There are some who say that he initially said, "Now he belongs to the angels," and later it was changed to the more iconic, "Now he belongs to the ages." But Stanton knew that the president had passed into the pages of history, where he would remain for all time. Lincoln's body remained in the room until later that morning, when a simple pine coffin arrived to transport the president's remains back to the White House. After the body's removal, two residents of an upper room in the boarding house, Henry and Julius Olkey, were allowed to enter the place where Lincoln had died. The Olkey brothers, German immigrants like their landlords, were Renaissance men of art and science. Their upstairs room was full of collected specimens for scientific study, and they also operated a portrait studio of paintings and photographs from Washington, D.C. The story behind the story: the Olkey brothers brought a camera into the room and captured the only known images of the inside of the Petersen House in 1865, of the bed that Lincoln had been laying in just moments before. After the assassination, crowds of visitors wanted to see the house and the room where the 16th president had taken his final breath. Many of these visitors wanted to take home a souvenir from their experience as well. Before long, the wallpaper, the carpeting of the house, items from the bed had been stripped by curiosity seekers. The Petersen family hoped that things would return to normal, but sadly this was not to be. Their boarding house business ruined by the attention focused on the home, William and Anna Petersen both died in 1871. Their children emptied the house of all its original furnishings and sold the structure in 1878. The bed that Lincoln had passed away on was found, and it is now in the collection of the Chicago History Museum. The Petersen House changed hands multiple times over the next decades. Washington, D.C. lawyer Louis Shade bought the building from the Petersens and sought to use it as a home for his young family. The Shades remained in the home for approximately 15 years until they could no longer stand the repeated requests from visitors to see the room where Lincoln had died. The house was next occupied by Osborne Oldroyd, a Civil War veteran and Lincoln enthusiast. Oldroyd turned the building into a museum and displayed his collection of thousands of Abraham Lincoln artifacts in the house. The United States government purchased the house in 1896. This marked the first time the federal government had bought a historic house for preservation purposes. Oldroyd was allowed to remain in the building, and he ran his museum until his retirement in the mid-1920s. The National Park Service took over the stewardship of the Petersen House in 1931. It has remained under the management of the NPS ever since. On a personal note, my wife and I have visited the Petersen House over the years. It's a tremendous experience. It is open to the public every day except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. When a ticket is given, it also allows you to visit Ford's Theater, of course, right across the street. The story behind the story goes back to March 1865, 1 month before President Lincoln was assassinated. John Wilkes Booth was visiting his colleague, Charles Warwick, who had rented a room in the Petersen House. Of course, Booth was an actor and frequented Ford's Theater many times, even had his mail delivered to Ford's Theater. He was familiar with the area as a former employee of Ford's Theater when acting in plays. While he was there visiting his friend Charles Warwick, Booth actually took a nap on the very bed where Lincoln would ultimately lie mortally wounded just 1 month later. Other interesting facts about the historic bed in the Petersen House. The original bed is now on display at Chicago's History Museum. The bed at the Petersen House is actually a replica. The Petersen House today. The Petersen House was acquired by the National Park Service. It is a museum decorated exactly as it appeared the night Lincoln died, even retaining the bloody sheets and pillowcases used by Lincoln. But the strange twist of fate where John Wilkes Booth actually fell asleep in the same bed where President Lincoln died highlights the interconnectedness of historical events. It showcases how the lives of notable individuals can intersect in unexpected ways. Visitors to the house today can tour 3 rooms on the main floor of the building. They are the room where Mary Lincoln spent much of the night grieving, the room Secretary of War Edwin Stanton temporarily led the federal government, and of course the final room where Abraham Lincoln passed away. The rooms include 1865 period piece furnishings, though none of the furniture is original in the house. After touring the house, visitors will then cross through the back porch to enter the Ford's Theater Society Center for Education and Leadership building. This building is home to a series of exhibits about Abraham Lincoln's death. Topics include Lincoln's funeral train to Illinois, the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth, and the trial of the Booth conspirators. All this leaves Lincoln's enduring legacy intact. And that's the story behind the story. I've delved into the untold and hidden gems behind the Petersen House. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. The echoes of the past are waiting to be heard. My name is Brian Smith, and we are history. Thank you for listening.